So, as you all know, I've struggled throughout my entire life with any attempts I've made to form any kind of relationship, romantic or friendship wise, with females. But today, I wanted to talk a little bit about how I've also struggled throughout my entire life with male friendship. And I think the thing a lot of people might not understand is yeah, like getting with girls, having a girlfriend, eventually having a wife, that's kind of like held above all the rest as the most important type of relationship. But without having strong male friendships throughout your life, it's very hard to even get to that point with a woman at all because part of how attractive you are to a woman, part of how women evaluate potential mates is the social proof, right? So if you're not friends, if you're not respected by other men, if you don't have a circle of other men to be friends with, that's going to hurt your chances with women as well. And not only that, but it's if you don't have a circle of male friends, it's going to be hard to meet women. And you're also, there are things you can learn from your friends, right? You learn about social interaction, you learn about the norms of society and all that. All that can be learned through male friendship, something that I've never truly had. So yeah, I've struggled my entire life with it, and there are some reasons. There are some reasons that I've just never been able to make friends or really maintain friendships with other guys. And one of the biggest things is, this hurts me with any kind of relationship, but it's brutal with male friendship. I've never been around other guys that have common interests with myself. I've always been a bit of an oddball. I don't know. I'm kind of eccentric, I guess. Although, to meet me, you wouldn't think that because I'm so shy and introverted and high inhibition that I don't act eccentric, I guess. But if I let my true self out, if I let people know my true thoughts, it's quite eccentric. That's part of the reason I think I'm on the autism spectrum. But yeah, it's like, I don't fit in with any group. I don't fit in with anybody. I've never found even, another, because you might think there's other guys like you. Could you not have run into another inkwell sometime in your life and become friends with him? And it's like, no, I don't. And those guys might be around, guys just like me, but if they're just like me, they're also cripplingly afraid of social interaction. So how are we going to become friends? It could never happen. And that relationship, even if we did meet, it just wouldn't work. We would never be able to become close to each other because for me to become close friends with someone, the other guy would have to take all the initiative to, really open, help push the boundaries and, open the relationship up. So it doesn't, just talking about this, I'm realizing how it's more over for me than I even realized when I started recording this. But yeah, I never fit in with the jocks, the popular kids, obviously, because I've never been very good at sports. And as a kid, I did enjoy shooting hoops every now and then, and I enjoyed playing baseball to some extent, but I wasn't into sports, like it wasn't a hobby of mine. Like I didn't watch sports on TV. I didn't play a lot of sports video games. I just wasn't, I wasn't into sports like that. My interests were more in video games, internet forums, and I'll probably eventually make a whole video about my history on the internet and using internet forums and how that kind of, radicalized me into being, I guess you could say an internet guy, radicalized me into being not a normie, which was horrible for my life. I wish I was a normie, I really do. But yeah, I never fit in with the jocks, the popular kids, and likewise, I never fit in with the nerdier kids at school, because there were some other kids in my school growing up and in my high school they were kind of clued in on internet culture and stuff, which is the type of thing I was into, but I don't know if it's maybe I have a bit of a superiority complex, because maybe I do. But it always bothered me how the nerdy internet kind of clique of guys at my school, I just always felt like they're kind of posers. I know that sounds very stupid, but that's just how I always felt. Like they were always like 6 months behind the cutting edge of internet culture and memes, like they were only into the mainstream stuff like Numa Numa or Shifty5 and stuff like that. When I'm over here, I know about all the most obscure memes. I know about like YTMND and all this stuff. I'm staying really clued in, and and if you're Gen Z or under the age of maybe like 30, 31 listening to this right now, you probably don't know what I'm talking about with Sh55 and YTMND, but it's just it was some popular internet stuff back in the day in the early 2000s. That's all it is. And I have no one to blame, because I think probably I could have gotten along enough with the kind of nerdy or less popular kids at school, but the fact is, they were all just, I felt in a way superior to them. And maybe that's just me kind of making excuses in my head, because ultimately, I even around those kids, I had crippling social anxiety. So it would have been, impossible for me to actually form a friendship with them to begin with. So I don't know if, my so-called superiority complex really played into it that much. But yeah, another thing about the kind of nerdy kids at my school, they were just like they all seemed to be like super Christian and goody types, whereas I'm obviously not like a bad boy or anything, but I've just never been kind of the goody type. Even in my early childhood, when I was super Christian, I still, kind of liked edgy sense of humor, dark sense of humor. I still kind of, push the boundaries of what is and isn't acceptable socially, or at least, in my hobbies and my interests, kind of push the bounds of what is or isn't acceptable socially. I didn't actually verbalize it socially, so maybe that's not the right word to use, but yeah, I just never felt like I could relate to the popular kids, never felt like I could really relate with the nerdy kids, and just there was nobody I could be friends with. And another thing about male friendship, guys are super competitive with one another, and I am just, I'm not aggressive at all. I'm just naturally submissive, which is, other guys can just smell it on me. So I end up getting taken advantage of. Anytime I've kind of almost made a friend, I end up getting taken advantage of. And I do at least have enough self-respect to kind of eventually end a relationship when it's like that. So if you remember in the very first video I made on this channel, I told a story about how this guy from school that was, kind of an acquaintance, kind of a friend, he invited me to a party, and well, the party was, one of the probably most brutal experiences of my life. You can watch that video if you want to hear more about that. But I think I did briefly mention in that video that I had kind of another story to tell about that guy, that so-called friend that had invited me to that party. So, yeah, I think this is a good example to illustrate how, I've struggled with male friendship throughout my whole life and how I get taken advantage of. And it's just brutal. So basically, this guy, when we were kind of friends, was when we were, I think, in like 9th or 10th grade. It must have been 10th grade. We were both 15, and then I turned 16 and got my license before he did. And it's a tale as old as time, He basically ended up using me for rides. And I did not pick up on it at first. And he was taking advantage of me in other ways, because I remember one time at school, he even asked to borrow some gas money once, like $20 or something. And keep in mind, he didn't drive. I don't know why he was borrowing gas money, but whatever. Yeah, and it was $20. I gave it to him, and he just never paid me back. He never brought it up again, like the next day at school. And I was thinking about it, but I didn't have the courage to go to him and ask him for the money, because I thought, well, he's not going to want to be friends anymore. He's going to be mad at me and not want to be friends anymore, which is, the reality is maybe if I had actually, pressed him to give me the money back, he would have respected that, because, that's an aggressive trait and he can respect that, respect me as an equal more so at that point. But the time that made me really realize for sure this guy is not really a friend and he's just taking advantage of me, taking advantage of my submissive nature, was this one time, he was texting me and he's telling me like, hey, we're gonna, and this was after we had gone to that party together. He texted me and he was like, hey, you want to hang out? We're gonna hang out. It's gonna be me, you, and we'll say Phil is this other guy, right? And so I go and pick up my friend, and as soon as I pick him up, he's telling me like, he's like, all right, let's go pick up Phil and we'll all chill. And I'm like, cool, that sounds good. I'm thinking in my head, like, awesome, this is cool. Phil's a cool guy. I kind of know him a little bit at school, never really talked to him much, but yeah, maybe I'll make another friend. I'm getting into a friend group now. I'm starting to get into a social circle. This is what I even at that age, I knew like this is what I need. This is what I've needed my whole life, and here's my chance. So I drive to Phil's house. We pick him up, and then we're just kind of driving around like teenagers do. And I really felt like at that moment I was like, yes, finally, I'm like living that classic teenage life where we're just driving around aimlessly, just hanging out. This is awesome. And it was kind of, I remember my friend and Phil, they were more so talking amongst themselves, and every now and then maybe kind of including me in the conversation, which didn't really bother me that much because I was thinking, I'm driving, they don't want to distract me, because I am the kind of guy that if I'm driving and someone were talking to me, that would distract me, But yeah, so after we're driving around a little bit, and then the two of them, they start talking about going to this girl's house where it was a girl from school that my friend was kind of talking to, and there was another girl at her house. So there was two girls over there, and yeah, so Phil and my friend are kind of talking about, we're going to go over to their house later and hang out, and they were kind of leaving me out of the conversation. Like, I noticed they were talking about it, and it just kind of sounded like I would not be there, But I didn't think that much of it, because I also kind of thought, well, I'm with these guys. They've been talking about, where my friend the whole time before I even picked him up was talking about, me, you, and Phil are going to be hanging out tonight. So, I didn't feel like they're going to abandon me this early, because we had not been driving around for that long, right? I basically just picked them up, drove around for like 10 minutes, if that, and then they start talking about like, okay, drive on over to this girl's house and we'll go there. So we get there, we get to the girl's house, and Phil starts getting out of the car, then my friend starts to get out, and I start opening my door and getting out, and then my friend is like, actually, Stacy's parents said only me and Phil could come over. We'll chill after, though. We'll chill after we're done here, though. So, I mean, that kind of definitely, when I heard that, that really hurt my feelings. Like, okay, so you don't even, can't bring me around the girls, can't bring the freak around the girls. He's a loser. He's gonna blow our chances with these girls, or we don't want these girls to know we're hanging out with him. That's kind of what I'm thinking, and that's probably how it was. So yeah, so basically I picked up these two guys, drove them over to Stacy's house where there's two girls over there, and then I just went home and I waited for my so-called friend to text me, because he said we're gonna chill afterwards. So I was ready to come pick these guys up after a couple hours or whatever and, finally hang out. But yeah, he didn't text me until like midnight or something like that. I mean, it was like hours later. And all he said something like, hey, don't worry about picking us up. We got a ride home from Stacy's friend. So yeah, I still talked to that guy at school after that. So we were still kind of acquaintances a little bit. I never like told him off or anything, but yeah, he literally never invited me to do anything else after that. And coincidentally, quote unquote, wink, wink, coincidentally, he turned 16 pretty soon after that and got his license not long after I did. So read into that what you will, but to me, I'm pretty sure this guy was just using me for rides it was one ride. He used me for one ride and he got $20 of gas money or, $20 out of me one time. For all I know, he bought drugs with that money. I have no idea. And that's just kind of a really illustrative, because, that friend was probably, if I think back on my high school experience, I would have to say that guy was my best friend. And he wasn't even, he was just using me, taking advantage of me. And he did invite me to a party one time, which that was, I I guess that was an act of kindness, or he was at least, vetting me as a, a potential actual friend. Maybe it was after the brutal experience of the party, he maybe after I told him about that and he heard from other people how it went down, he realized what a mark I was, basically, that I'm just a guy that a submissive guy he can easily take advantage of, because it was after that he kind of did take advantage of me, take advantage of my kindness, take advantage of my desperation to fit in. I don't know. And it's experiences like that that make me, now if someone was actually making attempts to become friends with me, I would be highly skeptical of it, I would think there's something going on here. He's trying to take advantage of me, because that's what I've experienced throughout my life. I do hear other people saying things about, male friendship, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Guys are so competitive that your best friend will stab you in the back in the drop of a hat, not even thinking about it. If another guy can gain advantage on you and benefit from at your expense in some way, he'll do it. That's something I've heard, but I don't know. I don't think that's always the case. I do have some hope in humanity out there. I know, somewhere there's like 7 billion people on this planet. Somewhere out there is other guys that I could be good friends with. It's just that I don't know. I have no chance of meeting them, They might be out there also, thinking the same thoughts I have about how much they need a social group, how much they need male friendship, and how they can't meet me because we'll never be in the same vicinity. And even if we're so, high inhibition, crippling social anxiety, we'll never be able to actually interact with each other. And it's so brutal, because again, not having male friendship, that's the equivalent of not having a social circle. And as much as the dating landscape is dominated by all these dating apps and social media and all that, I think still, at least, I don't know about the majority at this point, but a lot of people do still meet their future spouse through friends. And you meet new friends through the friends you already have. So what happens when you just have no friends? You have no social circle and you're 35 years old. What are you supposed to do? You're just out of luck at that point. You're just screwed at that point. There's no chance. People say, go to meetups, go to groups, I know that would not work for me. It just, there's no way. And I actually did I tried speed dating once. I didn't want to. My mom kind of, pressured me into it, strongly pressured me into it. And that was a horrible experience. Like, that was bad. That was just, it ended up being like really embarrassing, really humiliating how it all went down. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of a thing where you're, speed dating, you're forced into talking with, and obviously this is, talking with a woman in a romantic, potential romantic capacity. It's not male friendship, but yeah, that's a thing where someone is forced to hang out with me, right? And it just, even in that situation, I couldn't, because in that, it is a date that's set up, all the cards are on the table, and I just couldn't perform. I don't even want to think about that moment in my life right now, but yeah, I don't know. I've never been able to make friends. I have some kind of superiority complex, while at the same time, I think I'm better than other guys sometimes, and I let that get in my head. And then at the same time, I'm just like super hyper submissive, and other guys can smell it on me. I get taken advantage of. Guys don't see me as a potential friend, and maybe even if it starts off that way, they will eventually see, oh wait, he's a bitch, basically. I can take advantage of him easily. This guy will give me money. This guy will drive me places. So maybe in a way, with, how I naturally am, maybe it's better that I've never had male friends, because maybe I just would get taken advantage of more and more. I don't know. It's brutal. It is brutal if they are out there, because I know there are. My potential friends are out there, but I have no way I will ever meet them. It just won't happen. And I know it won't, and it can't. Ultimately, it is my fault. It is the way that I am. It is the way that I act, the things that I think. I can't blame society for my individual problems. I don't know.